Hi everyone, welcome to the Living Room channel. Today we're in for a treat as I'm going to feature a special segment on what it's like to be a woman of color. Growing up, I've been subjected to racial jokes and discrimination, which has affected me greatly. I used to think very lowly of myself, and I was always concerned about how society viewed me and how I have to always keep on striving to be better at what I'm doing. So I've been really inspired and encouraged by the stories that are coming about women of color and how they have to fight the odds and their movers and shakers in the industry right now. So this panel discussion is going to feature two of the strongest women that I've met. They are women of color and they're going to share their journeys with us and the challenges that they've faced and how it has actually, what are the things that they've gone through to overcome this adversity. And I do hope that this video will encourage you. And if this living room channel episodes have been a source of motivation for you, I do hope that you will like, subscribe, and share it with the circle of friends that you have. Let's do our bit to empower women and build them up to be more successful, to be confident, and to really shine. Thank you guys. Bye. Hi everyone, welcome to the living room. And I'm excited to have two beautiful women with me today to talk about what it's like to be a woman of color in this time and age. Welcome, Sarah May, and welcome, Maneesha.
Thank you.
It's really lovely seeing you ladies with the beautiful smiles. I think staying at home, all of us.
Yes, staying safe at home.
Yes. I'm just going to let you go just share a little bit of background about yourself. So let's start with you, Sarah.
Background about myself. I was born in Singapore. I did primary school here. And then I went to Australia when I was 12 and a half, and I lived there until the age of 26. And then I moved here. I'm a lawyer by profession, but I'm also an avid podcaster, and I teach little kids at kids' church. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice, nice. How about yourself, Maneesha?
So I am actually from Canada. I was born and raised in Canada, and I have parents who are of Indian origin descent, and my parents have been in Canada for about 40 plus years. And I am a middle child, only daughter, and I'm a teacher currently. And I actually moved to Singapore in July of 2018. And so I'm self-declaring, I'm calling myself a Canindaporian. So I'm Canadian, Indian, and Singaporean.
Wow.
Love it.
And I like the fact that we are all international. Like I'm Singaporean, I've got a Canadian, and I've got an Australian. So, girls, what did you share with me? Like, what's your journey been like growing up in Canada or in Australia, and as a woman of color?
Maybe I'll start. I went to primary school in Singapore, and even though my parents always had friends from different demographics, different racial groups, so I kind of was exposed and grew up with lots of different people in my life. But I was made quite aware about my race and my skin color as early as the age of 6. So I remember, I have all these memories, but I remember distinctively being 6 years old, and I'm in the school bus, and I see myself as like everyone. But this girl comes up to me and she says, "Oh, Sarah, the reason why you're black is because you haven't washed your skin, like you haven't had a shower." And I was like, "No, I'm not black. This is black." And I remember
ignorant.
Yeah, I'm like, "Do you not know how, did they not teach you how to differentiate between different colors?" And I remember showing her my hand, "This is black and I'm not black. I'm darker because I'm brown and because I'm Indian." And then, and she was like, "No, it's because you don't shower." And then I remember during recess getting a group of girls together, and I think I was only 6 or 7. And I was like, "Okay, all of you watch me wash my skin and see that the water doesn't change color to dark brown because I'm clean. It's just, this is my skin color." And so growing up with that kind of, I was acutely aware of my color in school because I had all these racist comments. not so much from teachers, because I think in the 90s it was not so politically correct to
Yes.
to refer to someone as a dirty Indian girl. Although my mom encountered that in the 70s in Singapore. But I was definitely made aware of it. And then when I went to Australia, I had this, okay, this is how people perceive me. But it's interesting because in Australia, they love tan skin. And in fact, when Asians flee the sun, a lot of Australians, they love the sun. And so I remember being 14 and like the it girls at school, I remember them coming up to me and stroking my skin and saying, "Oh my goodness, Sarah May, I love your skin color. You don't need to go for a fake tan because this is this is amazing. It's like a free tan all year round." And that was very healing for me, because as a 6-year-old child, to be told that I was dirty and my skin color was something to be ashamed of, and for girls to like restore me to like, oh, this is beautiful, this is great that people are embracing my skin color. So I kind of wasn't really I went through a journey of healing. And then when I moved back to Singapore at the age of 27, suddenly I was made aware of my skin color again. So I'm going back and regressing to 6-year-old Sarah, where the other lawyers in my law firm are making me aware of my skin color. They're talking about, talking about me. And when people used to ask my bosses, why does your team not like Sarah May? And they would basically say it's because of her skin color. So it's something that I had to overcome, and I'm still grappling with trying to process how people view me as an Indian, as a person with a darker skin tone. But I think in the process of all of this, I'm not 6 years old. I'm empowered. I'm my 32 self at 32 years old, and I know that this is beautiful. I know this is good, and so that's kind of been my journey over the last couple of years.
How about yourself, Maneesha?
Wow, I'm really impacted by what Sarah May shared, because there are a lot of things that I can echo in what you experienced, and for me too as well. Actually, when I was younger, I wasn't aware of my perceived difference, that is the skin color, until I was in the school setting. And I know that that's a lot of where the socialization process happens for kids. And so mine was in kindergarten. So I was about 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old. And I wasn't aware why this one particular girl did not like me, but I knew it. And, at a young age, kids can be ruthless, and they can be very clear about who they don't like. And sometimes, kids, you don't know why am I not liked? And so our teacher used to ask us to go and get our supply bin, our pencil case and our supplies from the windowsill. Every day we'd have a time where we'd have to get our belongings, and she'd call our names in groups. And this particular girl was in my group. And we'd go to get the pencil box from the windowsill, and her pencil box was right near mine. And so when I'd grab my pencil box and she would grab hers, she would pinch me. And I would think, oh my goodness, and I wasn't someone, a child to tattle or say, teacher, this girl did this to me. I would just wonder, okay, why is she pinching me? And then I went home after several times of this happening. I went home and I told my parents, and I said, there's this girl in my class, as a kindergarten kid, there's someone who's pinching me. And my parents, the overprotective type, overprotective Indian parents, they, stormed into the school and they said, what's going on? And they had a discussion with the teacher, and we sat down with the other family, and the girl basically came out and said, I don't like you because you're brown. And so for my parents to have to sit down and explain that to me as a child, that was very difficult. I can now understand, I'm not a parent, but can only imagine how it must feel for parents to have to explain that to their child, that this is the way God made you, but people are not accepting of that. And there's nothing you can do to change your color. There's nothing I can do to change, apart from surgery or fairness creams or whatever. We are made this way. This is how we are made. And don't even get me started with fairness creams, but that is something in the world that is almost the pressure of us making us feel like being brown is not good, or being brown is different and not good. So that was the first incident that happened. And then after that, it was a series of events that happened and repeated through either at school or in workplaces. And I was keenly aware that people do treat people of different color differently, either covertly or overtly. And so just like Sarah Mae shared, it's a series of events, and you realize, okay, wow. And you can revert back to that mentality of a 6-year-old, like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And I think it's really important to remember when you do think of those events that there's nothing wrong with you. It's there's this culture of, or this belief system that being brown is dirty, being brown is different, being brown makes you stinky or wrong or anything. It's just all the negative. And so that was my experience. It started at school. Yeah.
I think it all started at school. Like, even for myself, it's not more of the color tone, but I think in Asian culture, in Singapore especially, they used to have this label for Indians. They call it Apu Nene. I remember that very clearly. Like, whenever we walk past or we are in school, and you just hold that up, and I'm like looking at them and like, that's not even a word. That's not even a language. And for them to like try to segregate it, because I think they were maybe a little bit more concerned about not saying like in terms of like your color looks like that, but they thought, oh, we'll just label this person. But really goes back to the school days. And have you find that has changed when you all go back to work? Like, how are you being stereotyped at work because of this?
Sarah Mae, do you want to?
Yeah, I have a lot to say about this. Stereotyped at work, definitely. I felt it, not in Australia. I mean, I'm not trying to rose tint. I'm sure there is racial prejudice whichever country you go to, but sometimes it's more overt in certain cultures. And unfortunately, in Singapore, it is quite overt. And at least in the local law firms, in Singaporean law firms, I was shocked from language. So being in a group, if people are alienating you because they're speaking in Mandarin. And so my initial response was to clam up and just go into my 6-year-old self, like, oh my goodness, I can't handle this. This is too much. This is ridiculous. But then you're not empowering yourself. So I found myself doing that very often, just silencing myself and just like, and then sometimes I would ask questions. I would ask, like, so, what are you guys talking about? But often get shut down by saying, oh, it's not important. I mean, I don't care what whether you're talking about the sky, the color of the sky, or the TV show that you watched on the weekend. It is important because it's important that I feel accepted in any group.
Exactly.
I think that's the key. It's not the substance. I mean, it's not the topic. It's how you make someone feel. So prejudice in the workplace, I've encountered it through language. I've encountered it through just behavior, attitudes towards you. I mean, a senior partner in one law firm actually said, to a Eurasian girl who had Indian blood, it's good that you've got the fairer part of the Indian genes and you're not so dark. And then she referred to another person, and I turned around because I was shocked. I mean, this is a mid-30s lady, senior partner in a law firm, who in 2015 has the audacity to look, and she looked at me and I gave her like a death stare. But I think the empowered Sarah now would be like, I don't think that's appropriate. But the unempowered Sarah would just turn back to a computer screen, and I kept working. And I think that's the key. You need to know your identity in the workplace. You need to say, sometimes it can come across as abrasive when you say, no, I know you might think it's not important, but it's important for me. And you might come across as being harsh or abrasive, but that's actually owning your identity. This is who I am, and you need to tell people how to value you. And people, if you don't value yourself, people are just going to not value you. And that's what happened to me. I silenced myself. I didn't value myself, and I just kept quiet. Meeting after meeting, they would just talk in Mandarin. They would talk about Indians. They would say things like Apu Nene, and they would call Bangladeshi workers Banglas. And this is 4 or 5 years ago. We're not talking about the 70s, 90s. This is in Singapore today. So I think the key is to know your identity and embrace it, and let others know that this is something it's beautiful, and that it's not acceptable to debase something that appears to be different. Yeah.
I think there's just stereotypes at workplaces, like right now, right? They think that just because you're Indian, that you will be like every Indian is the same. Like when I speak on the phone, when I mention Siobhan, they will say, if I say my family name is Sunalan, there are some people who will say, oh, are you Indian? Like, why is that surprising? What do you expect me to speak in an Indian accent? Or even like, when I meet people who are not Indians, they will look at me and say, oh, I've been to India. Like, so I've never been to India myself. So you can see all these stereotypes in client meetings where they try to impress, but actually they're not impressing me at all, because we are not just because I'm Indian doesn't mean I'm subjected to that kind of stereotype. And how has
Totally.
that been for you, Maneesha? Do you face that as well?
Absolutely, Siobhan. I've experienced it multiple times, and I will say that we can't ignore that there is a privilege to a certain. There is a racial hierarchy, and the racial hierarchy, whether it's right or wrong, it's there and it's prevalent, and it's recognizable in the workplace, regardless of credentials, and regardless of talent, and regardless of abilities. And I will say confidently that even if you have someone who is a person of color, and I'll refer to them as POC, person of color, in the workplace, that is doing and working with excellence and doing their best and proving themselves above and beyond, oftentimes that becomes a little bit like intentionally overlooked, for either the privilege of being of a certain race. And it is quite prevalent. And I will say that it's ignorance isn't always bliss, because ignorance can be used as a crutch. And one of the things that I feel like ignorance needs to be eliminated through education. And the only way that it's going to be eliminated through education is by being educated by people who have experienced it. And so, like Sarah May said, and echoing what she said too, is to speak up, and say, this is wrong, and I don't agree with what you just said. And I'm going to educate you now on what I've experienced and how it made me feel, and how it impacts our culture, how it impacts the perception of our culture. If I remain silent, then I'm not helping anyone. And so I think, there's a lot of layers there in the workplace that need to be addressed. And it's not just in Singapore, it's worldwide. And I think, yes, it is definitely here. It's definitely happening here. And I know that it's happening here, but it's happening in Canada as well. And then sometimes it's more subtle, and sometimes it's more overt. But I think that we've been brown all our lives. We've been Indian all our lives. And so we can pick up on even the covert subtleties, whether they're doing it subtly and pushing us aside, and we contribute to a discussion or contribute to a work discussion or collaborate, and the idea that we've provided is pushed aside. I mean, it's definitely, we have to filter through reality, fact, and fiction. And sometimes by not speaking up, we're believing the lie that it's not a real feeling. And it is a real feeling, and it needs to be addressed. And I'm so glad, Siobhan, that we're having this discussion, because it needs to be addressed. So thank you for having us, and thank you for having this show and this session. It's great.
I do hope that encourages the women out there as well. And have you actually faced a joke, a racial joke, or a comment, and how do you all actually overcome that? Like, for example, right, I have people who come up to me and say, hey, you don't have to be in the sun for a very long time because you're dark already, and they think it's a joke. They really assume it's a joke. And I'm like rolling my eyes at them and like, how the hell is that a joke?
That's
like,
so offensive.
Yeah, that's so offensive. And I'm not sure, like, if they're even aware of the fact that, it's an offensive joke to say that to a woman of color. Like, when you all encounter something like that, so what do you do? Like, how do you actually address it?
Maneesha, do you want to go?
Sure. I have heard my fair share of jokes, and I will say there's two sides to this because I think when you're part of a certain race, ethnicity, or culture, you do have some sort of free pass to share in some humor with your family, your friends, because it's either common knowledge or it's shared. It's something that you've experienced,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a fine line because I don't like to say we're allowed to, but there is some sort of merit to sharing and a free pass, and when we do share, sometimes when we do share, it's opening a gate. It's opening a gate for others to feel like they're allowed to joke as well. And so I think there's some advice that I would say and suggest is the jokes that I've heard, whether they have been, accurate or not, am I going to pass that on and share that, or am I going to laugh about it? Is that going to perpetuate the stereotype? How is that going to affect the culture? But I definitely have heard it, and I will say again, it's because of ignorance, or it's because there's no education in it, or they haven't been educated, or in terms of knowing that stereotype is incorrect. I mean, I've heard, oh, do you speak Indian? Well, first of all, Indian isn't even a language. Do you speak Indian? And then, oh, do you like Indian food? Well, I mean, first of all, okay, I could say, yes, of course I love Indian food. I'm Indian, but not all Indian people like Indian food, or Indian food is a cuisine. Well, yes, I like some Indian food, but I don't like all Indian food. And, I could say, do you like Canadian food? Like, what is
What's
Canadian
Canadian
food?
food?
And,
Yeah.
right. So it's just it's not even jokes. It's sometimes just having this misconception or this idea about a culture, and then just an umbrella, putting it like sort of an umbrella term of over all Indians. All Indians do this. All Indians are this. All Indians believe in, all Indians are Hindu. All Indians are this. And so by doing that, we are then perpetuating the stereotypes, and then therein also perpetuating the jokes. So I've definitely heard it, and how I handle it. Well, I mean, the first time I would hear jokes, I'd second guess, and I would think, oh, really? Am I actually, like, I would doubt myself. I would hear it. In fact, sometimes I would even laugh because, you're trying to feel like, I want to be a part of this. I want to, and so I'd laugh, ha, ha, ha. I'd go home and I'd be so angry. When you go home, you're like, oh, I wish I had said, or I should have said, and so, and then that would happen, a couple of times. And then eventually what would happen was I'd get angry, and not outwardly, but I would get internally angry, and it would fester, and it would be like become bitterness. And then I had to deal with it. And then eventually I would address it. And that came out maybe too harsh and abrasive. And then now I'm more confident in saying, okay, I'm going to pick and choose my battles. Is this one worth addressing? Yes, it is. So I'm going to say, and I'm going to educate them. I'm not going to say, that was wrong, and start, getting all catty. I'm going to educate them on saying, did you know the history of this? Let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you the history of, in India, this is what happened, and this is where they got the name, and this is where they got the label. And then society took that label and made it. And just like, the African Americans, there's a very derogatory term that has been, brought throughout history. And there's a history behind that name. So I think now, with hearing the jokes, it's important for me to educate and give them a history, or also say, you know what, when I was a kid, I heard that, and this is what happened, and this is how it made me feel. And I think you need to really recognize that it impacts people, and it hurts them, or and that's basically what I experienced.
Wow, that's so good. That's so powerful, actually. Like, educating them, and it's sort of like something that you guys use, like a quote that you guys stick by in terms of being confident in the, when you overcome this, like what Maneesha shared. Sometimes you get angry, and then you want to actually, like, you have to still keep on going, still keep on moving. You can't let that anger or that bitterness just remain in you. So is there a quote or something that's inspirational that you guys like stand by when you encounter this?
Yeah, I like the quote, to be the change that you want to see in the world. I think it was Mahatma Gandhi, but I'm not 100% sure. It is? Okay, good. Fellow
I
Indian.
I heard the same quote from someone just recently as well. And I didn't
Yeah.
know it came from Mahatma Gandhi. I just thought that she just came out with the quote.
I just love the quote because it's like, it's like, just to tap on what Maneesha, you shared,
Mm-hmm.
initially when you're trying to find your equilibrium, you can come across as being very harsh, and that's fine because you're angry. But then you want to go past that into a stage of maturity when you, in your human interaction. So when you say, actually, you're already empowered. So actually, let me tell you that the dichotomy is not like between Punjabi and Tamil. So I often get asked the question, are you Indian or are you Punjabi? And that in itself shows the ignorance, because Punjab is in India. But I think what they mean is they think Indian means Tamil. So in their mind, you're either extremely fair or extremely dark, and there's no middle ground. And if you're Punjabi, you have to be very fair. But when in fact, there are many very, very fair South Indians and very, very dark North Indians.
Yes.
It's just the dichotomy and the diversity of India. I mean, India goes into, like, you've got Kashmir, you've got South India, you've got Tamil Nadu, you've got Central India. It's just so diverse. And so I think the key for me when I think of be the change I want to be in the world is, okay, they have not been exposed. Let me show them a different way, and do it with grace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, I have a quote, and it's by E. Cummings, but I have not memorized it. So I did write it down, and it's by E. Cummings: "To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best day and night to make you like everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting." And that reminds me of how we're each different, just like our fingerprints. So even though someone might group us according to our race and our culture and our skin color, within that, even, we are so diverse and we are so different and we are so unique, and we have something to offer. And by lumping somebody according to their skin color, it's a pressure that we don't need to have as women. As women who are professionals and educated and talented, we don't need to have an added pressure of being lumped into a category, because I think society wants us to fit into this mold. And I think we become even more of a threat when we do use our voice. And society sometimes, even this discussion in and of itself is it's a little risky, because we're talking about things that are, should be hush hush, or we shouldn't be talking about this, or we know this happens but don't talk about it because it's not a safe conversation, or whatever that means. But no, these are obviously common themes that we've all experienced in our lives, and we're becoming unified in it, which means that it's an issue that needs to be addressed. So I think that quote resonates with me, because it's just be yourself. I mean, you don't have to be like everybody else. You don't have to feel like because I'm darker, I'm not beautiful, or because I'm this way, or because I'm that way. I mean, everyone is beautiful the way they are, and they're unique, just like a fingerprint. And I firmly believe that everybody is made in God's image. And so that right there is a gift, and it's beautiful in and of itself.
And it's so good that you shared that about to educate them, because I think a lot of times, right, people they're ignorant is because we are so shy to talk about it. We shy away from such topics and we don't address it. And it's like, so people don't really know, like, unless someone watches something, a video like this, and you realize, oh, these are some of the common mistakes that they are making. They will never be aware unless someone addresses the issue. And I like the fact that everyone is beautiful despite the fact how we look. It doesn't really define us anyway, because society's standards of beauty is like, you have perfect skin, you have a perfect body, but not everyone is like that. And there are women who suddenly face have problems like acne problems in mid-age, and that becomes a self-esteem issue, because like society looks at beauty like you need to have very, very good complexion. So all those kind of things is just basically educating them. And so I really feel like what we are doing here is really shaping life. It's really impacting women out there. And how has your journey made you resilient or stronger right now?
I think just breaking shame in this
Mm-hmm.
area. I think there's so much shame, and that's how the silence comes in, because you subconsciously I'm powerful, I'm an independent woman, but subconsciously there's some level of shame with regards to your skin color or how you look, because you've been socialized in a certain way, whether it's your grandmother comparing your skin color, or whether it's your friend. Even Indians themselves compare your skin color with other people. So breaking shame off this area, I think that's how I've been able to empower myself and just say, look, this is nothing, like what Maneesha said, I'm made in God's image, and God didn't pick the wrong skin color when he picked my skin color. He chose it exactly like, you have perfect match with all the foundations. He picked the perfect match for your skin color. You're not one shade too dark or too light. So I think just breaking shame and embracing who you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I just want to echo that too, in terms of identity and being comfortable with yourself, and knowing that because society puts so much pressure on us. I mean, Indians, we know there's Bollywood, okay, and we're so inundated with the messages of being beautiful but not saying anything. So we could sing and dance behind a tree, but don't say anything, and don't use your voice for being empowered or fair and lovely, like things like that, where I mean, I'm not even going to say Indian, I'm going to say Asian culture in general. They idolize fair skin. And so little girls also are being told before they're even told that they're smart or they're valued or they're worthy, they're told they're pretty. And so we're already in a sense training up our daughters and the girls that are in our lives, that they should hold the standard of beauty to a higher standard than having brains and intelligence and being qualified and using your voice and standing up for yourself and being confident. And so it's like this tug of war. I mean, at such a young age, we experience this tug of war of what is more important. And I really do feel more girls are being pulled onto the side of beauty is more important. Even if I am qualified, even if I do have the skills, even if I can do it, society's pulling me towards beauty. So I'm just going to shut my mouth and I'm going to walk towards being this beauty queen and try to attain something that is not even there. You're never going to get there. I mean, and so having this comfort, being confident in yourself and knowing whose you are, and knowing that, that it's your confidence comes from within. And I think the stronger and more deeply rooted that you are in yourself, then you'll be able to push away the darts and the targets from society. I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of went on a tangent.
Yes, it's so good. It's so good. And on that note, as we're coming to the end of the section, what are some takeaways that you would like to leave behind to viewers out there?
Have conversations. Talk about it. And I think shame is when there's no light exposed to darkness. So talk about it. Talk about it with your friends. And if you feel that your friends don't know and have all these prejudices, maybe do it in a way that is not condemning and not like shaming them as well, but doing it with love. I think we need to have these conversations with love and grace. As angry as you might be, I think it's good to have these conversations with grace. Yeah.
How about yourself, Maneesha?
I really agree that I think with confidence comes maturity, comes grace. I mean, that's a huge revelation too, in terms of growing up and realizing, picking and choosing your battles, but also saying, you know what, this person doesn't know what I've experienced. They have never walked a day in my shoes, and they've never walked a day in my skin. So they are at an unfair advantage where they don't understand. And so having that grace, extending that grace, but also being bold and saying, almost to a point where I'm going to extend grace, but I'm going to tell you that this is wrong. And so I would think that the takeaway would be all these things that are coming away, like coming towards us in terms of race, racial bias, jealousy, competitiveness, insecurity, all those things are coming at us. I think the main takeaway would be to just be yourself, be comfortable in your own skin, know that you are worthy and you're of value, and just you're made in the image of God. I think that's the most, and it's a journey. It is a journey, but recognize that there are people out there, there are women out there that have experienced this, and that having communication and having conversation and an open dialogue about this is really important.
Nice. So thanks, ladies, for joining me on this show. And with that, right, I just want to tell viewers out there, embrace that uniqueness about yourself. If people look at you and say, hey, you're of a different color, celebrate that uniqueness because you are set apart. You're not like everyone else. That must make you feel special and so much loved rather than you don't want to be like everyone else. So I hope that you have enjoyed this show. I've really enjoyed talking to you, ladies.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Siobhan, for having us on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.